Sri Ganesha Sharada Gurubhyo Namaha Agajanana Padmarkam Gajananam Aharnisham Anekadam Tam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe. Welcome to all back to this chapter 7 of Ganesha Purana. In the last chapter, it had reached a very critical stage wherein the king Somakanta, who is stuck with leprosy and who left his kingdom and left for the forest, he came along with his wife Sudharma and two of his ministers, Subala and Gnanagamya. And in the forest, Sudharma met Chavana, who was son of Brighu. And Chavana, getting compassionate at them, at the command of his father Brighu, he brought all of them to the hermitage of Brighu, where they took a nice bath, had a good rest, and good food. And after that, it's a time because just before that, Brighu had mentioned it to Somakanta, saying that he was struck with leprosy because of some karma he has done in his previous birth. But again, let me just mention you here, this doesn't mean that everybody who is struck with some other disease is solely because of some karma they have done in their previous birth. It may or may not be so, because not all of them would believe in the reincarnations or rebirth, concept of rebirth. But it's psychologically, if you look from scientific angle, psychologically, if you generally nobody will going to accept that they have done anything bad in that particular life, they have done everything good, and they are at a point where they start cursing the god, saying that I was such a good person, I was always on the right side, I had never made a mistake in my life, but still why I'm stuck with this problem. Most of the time we may not be knowing what kind of problem, what kind of activity we are doing and how it is hurting the others. We may not be even aware of it. And in spite of all these things, if a person claims that he has never done anything bad, then a easier concept would be probably it may be because of something that you have done in your previous birth. Because something that had happened here now cannot be changed. Now King Somakanta is stuck with leprosy, and that is the reality which cannot be changed. Now there should be some reason. He needed some reason to know why exactly he was stuck with that. So a reason could be something that happened in this life, if not something that may be happening in the previous life. Because knowing the reason will not going to solve the problem. Next, they need to go ahead solving the problem. But then what is the purpose of knowing the reason? That basically often helps you not to make any such mistakes. It's basically with the concept that the karma will come back to you. Whether really karma will come back or not, scientifically we can't explain those things. But with the concept, psychologically, if we look at it, with the concept of karma, if you do certain things bad in your life, it will always come back to you and it will strike you back. That will make a person self made, a self disciplined, so that they will not going to create problem for the others or for the society. So it is actually with that intention, it's both a concept of psychology as well as the concept of sociology, in order to ensure that a person will be a good contributor to the society and will be a good partner in a family and will not going to create problem for the others. Well, now with this we'll now get in, wherein Brighu will now going to explain what probably Somakanta has done in his previous life, because Brighu, being himself capable of seeing the time from immemorial, the past time as well as the future time. So because of that reason, he has one such vision wherein he could able to see what Somakanta has done in his previous life. The sage said, sages who are hearing to this particular story, the Shaunakas who are hearing to this story from Suta, they were very curious at this particular point, because Brighu has already mentioned that he was struck with a leprosy because of some worst thing bad things he had done in his previous life. So they are all now curious and they asked Suta, what did Somakanta do after he arrived at the hermitage? What remedy did omniscient Brighu suggest? Wonderful Suta, tell us more of this tale as we carefully listen. Although we have drunk in your ambrosial words, we have not heard enough. We have lot more things to be yet to be heard. The sutta continues. You have asked a fitting question. Fortunate sages, you are certainly oceans of knowledge. Brahmins, it is usually difficult to finish a story if interrupted. But if a pupil, a student, one who is listening, does not ask a question, and when questioned, if the teacher does not reply, both may be considered to be a deaf and dumb. This is the education system that was existing in the ancient India. It is not about giving a lecture, whether the people in front of them are interested or not. It is always the people who are sitting in front of them with the intention to learn, considered as students, the participants. They need to ask a question. And when they ask a question, they are supposed to ask the question because unless they ask the question, the session will not continue. Of course, here it may not be possible, but that is how exactly in an interactive way it was happening in the past in Gurukulas of India. When the student asked a question, the teacher was answering to them. And if teacher doesn't answer when the student asks the question, or if the student doesn't ask the question at all, they are considered to be equivalent to deaf and dumb. It was one such kind of a wonderful education system that was existing. It was not like just go and sit there. Period one, there will be a lecture. Period two, there will be another lecture. Whether you are interested or not, you are bombarded with so much of information, and you are expected to remember all these information. And in the term and examination, you just have to vomit everything on the paper. This is the kind of education system that India imported during the British rule, probably it had imported this from the West, and it is continuing it with that such kind of an education system even today. Though in the West itself, they have changed a lot in terms of their education system, but even today in India, majority of the places, the education means you should be knowing, you should be remembering as a slave, you should remember a set of instructions and just vomit it in a term and examination. And if you vomit it 100% as it is, you will get good marks, and one who is good, gets a good marks is considered as the most intelligent person. What a pity. Whereas the Indian education system was never like that. There is no necessity for anyone to understand, and in fact, you can never be able to understand the very concept of reincarnation or rebirth. You will never be able to understand how exactly it will going to happen. But there are various aspects explained in the Puranas how these things are, and all those different confusing concepts contradicting each other, they will trigger several thoughts in the brain, and with that, the neurons in the brain will fire. The neurons need to fire, and with that, person will be able to establish a knowledge. And nowhere it was expected that the person would have understood the concept so that remember the concept and then put it to somebody else. It was never required. The memory was considered as the least thing. Of course, they were giving a lot of importance to memory, remembering the mantras, everything. But it was only to remember the mantras. But when it comes to understanding the mantras, they were putting all the effort to think about it in multiple ways, so that with all those things, the very intention of all the Puranas, of all the Itihasa, that is the Ramayana, Mahabharata, explained in multiple different ways, is to ensure that the neurons, more and more neurons in the brain will fire so that the brain will get developed. And with the kind of education system that we imported it from the West, that it is just mug up the things, understand the things, and repeat it like a repeat it like a parrot. And with that education system, the brain development actually goes down. Anyway, well, we'll go ahead. Here, he puts such a wonderful thing wherein he says that a pupil who does not ask a question, when questioned, if the teacher does not reply, both may be considered as deaf and dumb. Excellent Brahmins, please listen now because I'm going to continue to recite Somakanta's story. When night has passed away and the sun, Lord of the day, rose, that's in the morning, best of the Brighus, having completed his morning bath, prayer, offerings. In the previous chapters, we have seen what exactly mean by what are the things one is supposed to do in the morning. What is bath? What is a prayer? What is offering? What is the science behind all those things? Began to tell the king the tale of his previous life. Along with his wife and two ministers, they had also bathed and completed their prayers, and they sat before Brighu to hear the story of what exactly Somakanta has done in his previous life. Brighu continue the explanation, continue the story. In the enchanted city of Kolhara, which was located near the Vindhya mountains, there was a famous Vaishya called Kidrupa who was very wealthy. His wife was called Atisubhaga, who was famous for her beautiful eyes. She was very virtuous, generous, and obedient to her husband's wishes. In a previous life, you became her son, and that their son, Chidrupa and Pratisubhaga. They were your parents, O best of kings. And as proclaimed by the Brahmins, you were named Kamanda. Eventually, your parents became old. Day and night, they showered excessive affection on you and overfondled you too. I'm sorry. Actually, the name of Somakanta in his previous birth was not Kamanda. It is basically Kamanda. Amanda. Amanda basically means he was blind with lust and love and fulfilling his desire. In that aspect, he had become literally blind. So that was the meaning of his particular name. Well, then in an auspicious ceremony and giving away large amount of wealth, they married you to a woman known by the name Kutumbini. Kutumbini means one who is more oriented towards a family, one who could take care of her family well, who was very delicate and had eyes like a dove. She was deeply attached to you and attentive to your guests, the demigods and Brahmins. She was very beautiful, a veritable jewel amongst the women, and as lovely as the wife of Kama. Kama, who was actually the god of, like Cupid, he is the god of the sex and love, and his wife was considered to be the most beautiful among all the women in this world. And this lady, Kutumbini, who happens to be the wife who got married to Kamanda, she was as beautiful as the wife of Kama. After a long life, your father died, and your good mother, destined for heaven. So both the parents passed away, entered the funeral pyre with him. So it was actually a concept, I mean, it was actually a ritual being followed in the past that whenever the husband dies, the wife used to jump onto the pyre of her husband. It was called as Sati Sahagamana, which was later abolished by during the British rule. It was during a reform movement, Rajaram Mohan Rai has abolished this. This is just for your information. Let's continue. After some time, a group of friends and yourself spent all of your parents' great wealth. Whatever money that was acquired, some was lost and some spent until all of it was gone. Your wife became very upset. She separated from you. because you ignored her wishes and even sold your only house. After being given permission to leave you, who had become a thorn in your lineage, because the very presence of wife was a thorn. She was not allowing for his the free will and the way he was enjoying and the way he was wasting the money. So she asked permission to leave him and go. She was sent to her father's home in order to take care of your children. Like an arrogant and intoxicated drunkard, you acted improperly throughout the city and behaved like a rutting elephant, one who is under no control. You stole others' property because you lost all your property. There was no money left with you. So you stole others' property and had affairs with many women. You became a thief and a troublemaker, a chief amongst the gamblers. Your heart, a torrent of deceit. You roamed the city causing harm like a hero without real strength. Most townspeople were moderate in their sense pleasure after you had stolen from those people using every possible pretext, like getting through friendship or through false promises, through sentimentality. You became maddened by your accumulation of great wealth in those wrong ways. You lied and used foul language and gossiped about the townswomen. The townspeople became frightened of you as though a highly venomous snake had come into their house. Just like a thorn in a meal made from milk, you became intolerable. After they obtained the king's permission, you were banished from the city. You became a murderer, killing women, children, and the elderly. Just like a wolf or a deer, after seeing a lion flees, you fled on seeing a posse of men coming after you. Fleeing to the forest, you needlessly killed fish, cranes, swans, wild roosters, wolves, deer, monkey, cuckoos, rhinoceros, rabbits, iguanas. In this way, you viciously acquired your food. After raiding a mountain cave of lions, tigers, and jackals, you formed a gang of absolutely terrifying thieves that came from many places. With wood, lumps of earth, and stones, you built an extraordinary dwelling in that cave. It was broad, a croda in length, and decorated with many oddities. One cannot even imagine a present life King Somakanta would have lived such a worst life in his previous life. But it does happen so. Because your wife's father was afraid of the king and the people, he forced her to go with her children into your dwelling. So he brought his daughter and her children, who happens to be the wife and children of Kamanda, he brought them to his dwelling and just dropped them there because of the fear of the king. The children wore a variety of clothes and adornments, and your wife shone splendidly like a goddess. Of course, husband may not be doing a right way, but at least he is bringing enough wealth for her, so she was enjoying that wealth. When she arrived, you were accompanied by your gang of thieves, having returned to the cave after killing and robbing some unfortunate people on the road. In your home with the thieves and your wife and children, you appeared like a king. On one occasion, you saw a learned Brahmin named Gajavardhana. I think it must be Gunavardhana. Gunavardhana, quite alone in the road at midday. After seizing his right hand, you captured him As he was assaulted, he began trembling, realizing your intention that he became afraid for his life. So he spoke to you with words of extraordinary pity and reason. That Gunavardhana said, "You already have good fortune and wealth, so why do you wish to kill me? You are not the type to rob a Brahmin who is a peaceful husband and has injured no one." Brahmin means he's supposed to be somebody who is after knowledge, who is after seeking the knowledge, and he certainly would not be having even a single penny. So he won't be having any money or no gold with him. Leaving behind your evil inclinations, you should do the right things. So he started preaching to this king of thieves. My first wife has died. So, in order to settle the debt to my father and to create a righteous lineage, I have obtained another lovely wife who is submissive, very generous, virtuous, and endowed with all good qualities. Now, here specifically, settle the debt to my father basically stands for that every Brahmin is supposed to do what is called as Pitrakarya. A Pitrakarya here means a duty towards your father, not just your father, with respect towards your grandfather, great grandfather, whether if they are existing in this world, uh, Brahmin was supposed that person was supposed to take care of them. What if they are no longer in this world? Even then, they worship them and offer them the food with an intention that that food will going to reach them in whichever world they are living at present. So this is a belief. Basically, the science behind this belief is to ensure that your next generation will be aware of who are all your forefathers, who was their grandfather, who was their great grandfather, who was before them, who was their father, and what all the things they did, so that at least on the day when they do the worship of all their previous generations, on that day children will come to know what great deeds their previous generation has done, and so that that would turn out to be an inspiration for them. It is with that intention they do what is in India it is called as Pitrakarya, the work, the work and worshipping towards their fatherly generation, and it is also being done towards a motherly generation also. It's called as even for the mother and their mother also it will be done, or both for the father and the mother. This activity is being done. So let me continue. She was she was worked with great zeal. The Brahmin is explaining it to the king of thieves in order to get the pity from him that his old wife was dead, previous wife was dead, and he married a new girl who is helping him, who is working with great zeal, endeavoring to become a good wife. Our lives would be meaningless without each other. So don't kill me. Become like my father and mother. I will become like your son, since in the Shastras it is proclaimed that the father is a protector from fear. Now I'm trembling with fear, and if you safeguard me, if you allow me to live, and if you don't kill me, you will be considered equivalent to my father, and I will be like your son because you gave me the life. You are not killing me. Just simply by not killing me, you will be considered as equivalent to my father. So he went on trying to convince to the king of thieves. Since in the Shastras it is proclaimed that the father is a protector from fear and the sustainer of life, even thieves will protect a Brahmin who seeks refuge. So you must release me who seeks your protection, because I'm seeking your protection. If not, you'll be descend into a hellish world from a for a thousand kalpas. Kalpas is a measure, and of course, some other time I'll explain about it. Kalpa is a very, very long measure running into lakhs of years, while your sons, wives, friends, and subjects will enjoy your wealth. So, by killing a person who is after seeking the knowledge, who is doing good things for the sake of society, who was considered as a Brahmin, one who is always involved in gaining the knowledge. And by killing one such kind of a person who has no aspect of any selfish nature in his life, and he is always working for the sake of society. And if you kill one such kind of a person like me, you will going to fall into a hell, and your wife and others will enjoy your wealth. Your gang of thieves will be very happy not to share in your bad luck. So, whatever bad deed that you are doing, killing the people, and if you kill a Brahmin, your family, neither your family nor your other mates, other friends will share the bad luck that you are doing. I don't think you really want to experience this terrible reaction over so many births. For doing one such kind of a mistake, you will going to suffer for multiple births. Thus ends the seventh chapter of Upasana Khanda of glorious Ganesha Purana called Somakantha's previous life. So Brighu started narrating the life of how Somakantha lived in his previous life. He was son of a really wealthy Vysya, but incidentally, because of a bad company, he started wasting his money along with his friends, and even his wife left him. But finally, one day, when after enjoying with so many, too many bad things, he was thrown out of the city, and then he became the king of thieves. He became the leader of the thieves and started robbing the people, and with so much of wealth accrued, and the, even his uh, even his father-in-law, under whom his wife and children were there, he was also afraid of the king, and he abandoned his daughter and forced her to go and live with this king of thieves. And that was the condition of Somakanta in his previous life, who was then called Kamanda. And probably that is the reason why, with the karma coming back, he is now stuck with the leprosy. We'll see further what will going to happen. Namaste Sharada Devi, Kashmir Puravasini, Twamaham Prarthaye Nityam, Vidya Danancha Dehimi. Goodbye.